I went to see our congregation last Sunday in Pulaski State Prison. A third of these ladies are lifers. It's not like, this is not just some little jailhouse religion to get them out. And I had a spectacular time. I mean, if you ever want to have a spectacular time, go hang out with them. They'll probably see this next week maybe, right? And I just want you guys to know I legitimately love you. I just do. I came home and told Bernadette about how great it was, and I'm just so thrilled to see such passion. Just to see such passion and such love for my father and, of course, your father in the midst of a difficult situation. And it's just a pleasure to feel the Holy Spirit. I mean, we really saw a manifestation of the Holy Spirit, something that I'll maybe share with you next week, but it was a legitimate manifestation, and I'll go into that. But I love you, and thanks. This once a month I just share on the Torah Parsha. I don't get to choose the verses, which is kind of fun and exciting for me because I don't know what they're going to be. But it's really neat when I sometimes pray about the verses or pray about the message, and then somebody sends me the verses, and the verses are exactly what God told me. And, many times I say to you, like, I'm not 100% sure that I'm hearing from God. And I say that for a couple of reasons. One, because it's kind of true, but I just got to tell you, many times during, especially this week, I had this confirmed and reconfirmed and reconfirmed. God is very good to me. He's very good to me. He lets me know that if I hear something from him, he knows that I'm not confident. And so he will confirm the message to me through many people. I mean, we saw it all week long. So I just want you to know, you're like me, you're a child of God. It's not easy to hear, and when you do hear, it's not easy to know, to go, because we're emotional. But if you really, really want to follow God, if you really, really do, and you want to be flagrant, he will confirm his word to you. And I mean, beyond a shadow of a doubt. You'll know. So it's available to everybody. This couple of verses that we read, we're going to read it in context in Genesis 6, 5 through 9, because context is the key to interpreting Scripture. Without putting something in its context, you have what's called pretext, and pretext is not the truth. And you have to really be careful of that. You can't take a verse and run with it. You can't even take a couple of verses around it. I'm just taking a few for teaching purposes, but you should really read the whole chapter. Chapter 6 in Genesis is known as the widespread of sin and the universal flood. That's the chapter. That's what it talks about. And here we have, it says, Adonai saw that the people on earth were very wicked. This is sad. This is really sad for me. I get sad every time I read this. That all the imagings of their hearts were always of evil only. Adonai regretted that he had made humankind on the earth. It grieved his heart. Adonai said, I will wipe out humankind whom I have created from the whole earth, and not only human beings, but animals, creeping things, and birds in the air. For I regret that I ever made them. But Noach found grace in the sight of Adonai. Here is the history of Noach. In his generation, Noach was a man righteous and wholehearted. Noach walked with God. All right, let's break it down a little bit. Genesis 6:5, it says, Adonai saw that the people on earth were very wicked. This is it's incredibly sad. I mean, very wicked, it means all their imagings, all their thoughts. It says all the imagings was bent on evil. It was gross immorality. And as you'll read in context, a lot of it had to do with sexual immorality, which there's nothing new under the sun, huh? Sadly enough, looking at Genesis 5, which is the creation of man restated, or the genealogy of Adam. Some call it the tolling of the death bells. I mean, I just grabbed a few verses, 5, 8, 11, 14, 17, 20. In all, Adam lived 930, then he died. In all, Shet lived 912, then he died. In all, Enosh lived 905, then he died. In all, Canaan lived 910, then he died. In all, Mahalalel lived 895 years, then he... You get the picture? I mean, this proves that what God said back in Genesis, in 2 and 3 about if you eat from this tree of knowledge of good and evil, you'll die. And this was the natural manifestation of that. He was speaking about a spiritual death. There'd be a spiritual death between Adam and God, that they would have a lack of communication. They'd have a lack of fellowship. They would have a lack of intimacy. But he also spoke about a natural death. And we know that all people die. And that wasn't the way it was supposed to be according to the Bible. It's shocking because the time span, if you do the math, and it's very easy to do actually, you don't have to be a mathematician, but the time span from Adam to Noah was 1,056 years. And that sounds like a long time, but on an eternal scale, that's very short. So in 1,000 years, in 1,000 years, the people on earth, except for one, loved evil with all their hearts. It's hard to believe. In fact, look at I can't get into this too deep because it's a deep subject, and we don't have the time for that now, but I just want to touch upon this. Genesis 6, 1 through 2. It says, in time when men began to multiply on earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. This gave birth to the Nephilim. And it's not really hard to figure out. I know some people really struggle with it, but you don't really have to struggle with it. The Nephilim, if you look it up in Hebrew, means demigods or giants. They were giants. And we know that the daughters of men were mortal women, like yourself, and the sons of God were angels. How do we know that? Because if you go to the Bible, you have to let the Bible prove the Bible. Listen, forgive me, sometimes I'm very dogmatic and I get a little emotional, I say crazy things, but some people's revelations are not necessarily revelatory from God. In fact, some of these books you'll read, they're anti-scriptural, even though they swear they saw it. Okay, I know. There's a book out now. I don't want to get into it. 4 million copies and climbing. And it does not line up with the Bible, even though the guy's a great man of God. You got to stick with the Word of God. You hear, how often do I push that? Almost too often, right? It's like, I sound like a broken record, but you have to. Scripture must prove Scripture. That's another hermeneutical tool or technique to understand Scripture. It has to be that way. And there cannot be any discrepancies. In fact, every discrepancy in this Bible is apparent, and you can reconcile it. There's about 950 of them. Okay, look at Job 1:6-1. I don't want to, I thought you weren't going to get into it. Well, I'm not going to get into it too much, but look, it happened one day that the sons of God came to serve Adonai. The sons of God, angels. Okay? They came to serve Adonai. Another day came when the sons of God came to serve Adonai. And we know in Jude, who was Yeshua's half-brother, it was a very, man, it was a punishing letter, man. It was one little chapter, and boy, it was chock full of rebuke. It says, and the angels that did not keep within their original authority. What's he saying? He's saying who these Nephilim are. The Bible tells you. You don't have to guess. You don't really need a big revelation on this. It tells you. They didn't keep within their original authority. I'm not a sci-fi person. It does not mean that you're sinful if you like sci-fi. I've never liked it. Anytime somebody tried to introduce it to me, I hated it because it was fake. If you want some intrigue and excitement, just read the Bible. I think this is pretty cool. Like angels mixing with women and producing giants? It sounds like a good movie to me. They abandoned their proper sphere. Now we know what they did. He had kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for the judgment of the great day. They're bound. They're bound, so we don't have to worry about them. People say, well, could the Nephilim come and do that again? No, it's done. They're bound. Okay? And Sodom and Amorah and the surrounding cities following a pattern like this. So they were following their pattern. What pattern did they follow? We get sodomy from the city of Sodom. It was sexual immorality, gross sexual immorality, sick sexual immorality. And I'm just telling you, it's alive and kicking today. And it tells you, the Bible tells you, I'm not making it up, a pattern like this, committing sexual, so we know they were sexually sinful and perverted. Lie exposed, there's a warning of the everlasting fire. Okay, so I just want you to know, according to the Word of God, that's who the Nephilim were. They were guilty of vile sexual behavior. Okay, let's go to Genesis 6 through 7. This is the sad part. I highlighted that word. I don't know, I regretted. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine a person regretting having a child? Or wishing, wow, I wish. There are a lot of people. The jails are full of kids that were told, I should have never had you. I should have never had you. You ruined my life. Some of you might have heard that. It's a detestable thing to hear. And it's challenging to be a parent. And every now and then you fantasize. It's not illegal or immoral or sinful to go, when they say, they call your name 20 times and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I was on a beach in the Bahamas. I'm sorry. That's right, I'm back. It's okay because it's overwhelming at times. But it's sad. The reality of that is sad. And God is saying he regretted that he said, I'll wipe out humankind. It sounds like really mean on God's part. It does. And then he says the animals too. Now the animals are innocent. Animals don't sin. But what's the message? You know what? A baby born that's a crack addict didn't do crack, but mommy did. So sometimes there's punishment, sadly, that we suffer on behalf of decisions made for us. But I just want you to know, with all these generational curses, Ezekiel 18 does not preach what a lot of people preach. It says if you repent and turn, those curses are broken. So you can walk around thinking you're cursed, and sometimes it's just bad decision making on your own part. It's just not yielding to the Holy Spirit, and you blame generations. It says clearly, read Ezekiel 18, I'm telling you, it's blatant. I hear that teaching, and I'm like, it goes against the Word of God. Well, you got to blame somebody, right? I mean, why take responsibility? It's old-fashioned. Look at this word regretted. It's nacham, and it just means, in Hebrew, it just means God says, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I ever made them. Golly, can you imagine the grotesque sin? His heart was filled with pain. I don't think we realize how painful it was for our father. So incredibly painful, filled with pain. And if you ever wonder if God has emotions, he definitely has emotions. He cries plenty. He cries plenty. The Lord's sorrow wasn't arbitrary, though. It was totally in response to this massive shift in man's behavior. God is holy. He's holy, and he has to react to sin. He can't live within the confines of sin. He has to react. It's just who he is. Okay? The defect is not in God. It's in us. Animals, creatures, birds, sadly enough, morally innocent, but they suffered under man's corrupt rule. Now, 6:8 through 9, the last couple of verses, it says, but Noah found grace. The grace of God has been around for a very long time. In fact, it says that God already had a plan before the foundations of the earth to send Messiah. And that Messiah is God's grace. So it wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't a response to a situation. It wasn't like cause and effect. It was something that was set in motion way before the foundations were laid. God's always been a God of grace. He always was, and he always is, and he always will be. And Noah found grace. And what do they say about Noah? That he was righteous. He was wholehearted. This I love. He walked with God. What does that tell you? When you think of somebody walking with somebody, I'll be honest with you. When I walk with Bernadette, I don't like to put my arm around her. I like to hold her hand. There's more intimacy in the hand. The hand is an extension of who you are. The hand, when you stick out your hand, you're saying yes. Yes, we make covenant. We make a pact. And the arm around is sweet, and sometimes I'll do that when she's sitting next to me, but I prefer to hold a hand when she's sitting next to me. I feel there's way more intimacy with that. And when I think of Noah walking with God, I think of them just holding hands. Just holding hands in like this unbroken fellowship. Now, you might read some Talmudic scholars and some rabbis say something different. Just be careful who you read. I think what you should do first is get out the Bible, get out a concordance, and get out the Holy Spirit, and see what you hear first. I mean, obviously, if you ask them, that's what they'll tell you they did. He had this covenant relationship. He had intimate fellowship. They had close friendship. And there is a huge difference, I don't know how huge, but a huge difference between walking with God and merely living with God. You know, people tell me all the time, what's wrong with living together? Everything. There's no covenant. There's no covenant. You know, my friends, my secular friends, they live together. When they're tired of it, they just say, go. You can't do that when you have a covenant. People say, well, it's in the eyes of the baloney. God had a marriage ceremony with Israel. Don't tell me it's not biblical. There was a marriage ceremony. You check out Exodus 19 and you tell me if that's not the truth. Did he not have a chuppah? It was a cloud cover. Did he not have music? It was thunder. Did he not have fanfare? There was lightning. Did he not say, I'll give a sign? Shabbat. Did he not have a ketubah, a contract? The Ten Commandments. People that say that, I mean, to me, it's just showing their ignorance. And what it's showing is they want to do what they want to do. So they're trying to find something to support their wrongdoing. Got to make covenant. God is a covenant-keeping God. And he wants us to be in covenant with him. Don't go after those other gods. I'm jealous. I am too. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I have this pet peeve about Bernadette just sleeping with me. I guess I'm just a fuddy-duddy. So he was saved. Noah was saved by grace. He went into the ark. And everybody else, sadly enough, was destroyed. And then Yeshua himself grabs this section of Torah. He grabs it when he gives his Olivet discourse. That sounds really theological, right? For all you that aren't theologians, that's what he said on the Mount of Olives before he was taken away. He gave 97 verses about the end days. 97 between Matthew 24 and 25. And there was no big break in the action. It's not like he said, okay, I'm hungry, I'm going to go to sandwich, we'll come back with the 25th chapter. Men did that, not out of malice, but for teaching purposes. But be careful about those breaks. Sometimes you'll see a chapter, there'll be a year. Sometimes it'll be overnight, sometimes it'll be the same day. You've just got to read it in context. Anyway, he gave this long dissertation, if you will, on the end days. When they asked him about the end days, he didn't say, I don't know, you don't need to know. He definitely went into, I mean, how many times have I told you this? This might be like a revelation to some, not to you guys, but Yeshua had one sermon. I mean, he is the king. He is the Messiah. He is the God-man. He is the only mediator between the Father and us. He is the only reconciler. And in this fullness of God's glory manifest in one place at one time, he gives one sermon. Parables are not sermons. They're drive-by teachings to support the sermon. And when you look in the Bible, you don't have a lot of information that Yeshua spoke. You have very little. What I'm trying to say is it's more simple than we make it out to be. Because we're supposed to follow him, then we're follow what he said. And he didn't say that much. Not much at all. I'm not belittling him. He could get away with saying very little and mind bomb. He'll say a sentence and just blow up your mind. Because he spoke with authority, because he spoke with great anointing, because he received the anointing without measure. He had the ability to do that. But I want you to know something. If he was right here and he was speaking, some of you still wouldn't respond. Remember the guy that was dead and said, let me go back. Surely they won't listen to me. They're going to listen to you. The guy was like, you're kidding me. If I come back from the dead, they just went to my funeral, I tell my brothers, they won't listen to you. Still, sometimes he'll say, you got to forgive. And you'll be like, yeah, you don't understand. So you could have the full manifest presence of the Holy Spirit, and still, it's a matter of yielding. It's a matter of yielding. You know that. You have people in counsel. I did counseling for years. If one person isn't interested, I could tell when the husband's there, he's already made up his mind. He's already made up his mind. I was asked, the Holy Spirit will tell me, he's made up. He's already gone. He's got a girlfriend. He's done. He's been done for 5 years. I said, you've already made up your mind. You're wasting my time. You're wasting your wife's time. I think it's deplorable. You're being manipulative because you're here just to prove to her and the kids that you really tried. Why don't you be a man and be honest? And for the girl as well. I mean, we sing, deep crawls out to deep. How deep do you want to go? You want to sing the song or you want to go deep with God? So here we have Matthew 24. We read, let's put that in context, okay? Matthew 24, 32 to 39. That's a section of context, but you should read the whole thing. I'm a big fan of reading all of Matthew 24. I'm a big fan of reading all of Matthew. And I'm a big fan of reading the whole Bible in its context. Okay, there's the Olivet Discourse, the King's Olivet Discourse, the signs of the end of the age. He talks about the tribulation period and the second advent, his coming. Okay? Now let the fig tree teach you its lesson. Now, we're supposed to take the Bible literally, but there's much metaphor, mixed metaphor, simile, and rich symbolism and figurative language in the Bible. Okay? When it says go under God's wings, it doesn't mean he's a chicken. And I'm not being facetious, I'm just saying this sometimes, and if you see something figurative, what you do is you go through the Bible and see where it's used figuratively and see some kind of common thread. Okay? What you have with this, he's not saying learn from the fig tree. The fig tree is Israel. It's always been used that way in Isaiah and other sections. Now let the fig tree teach you its lesson. When its branches begin to sprout, okay, showing life, and leaves appear, that's life, you know that summer is approaching. So he's saying in the natural, now he's going to go to the spiritual. In the same way, when you see all these things, what he just aforementioned about the signs of the end of the age, from verse 1 to 31, you are to know that the time is near, right at the door. I mean, not near, far, right at the door. It's imminent. Yes, emphatically, exclamation point. I tell you that this people will certainly not pass away before these things happen. I'll get into it a little bit. I'm not explaining it now, but I'll break it down or try to anyway. Heaven and earth will pass away, and it will. But my words will never pass away. My promises, you can take it to the bank. He's never bounced the check yet. But when that day and hour will come, no one knows. Okay? Not the angels in heaven, not the angelic host, not the four living creatures, not the cherubim, seraphim, or any of the other angels in heaven, the angelic host. Not the Son. He's saying, I don't know. That's pretty heavy. I don't know. Because in Jewish reckoning, when a father is the only one who could send his son to get his bride. When they're engaged, okay, they're basically married. There just has to be a fulfillment of the covenant, which is what we're waiting for. We're engaged. We're betrothed. We're not married yet. We will be. The marriage supper of the Lamb is coming. And we're supposed to keep ourselves pure because we don't know when he's coming back. The only time we know is because the father blows the shofar and says, son, go. That's the same thing. A Jewish wedding ceremony, and this is exactly the same. And what a son does or what the bridegroom does while he's away is he builds a room for his bride on the father's house. Didn't he say in John 14, in my father's house, I'm building a place for you? I mean, it's really a sad situation when we vacuum out the Jewishness of the gospel because we don't know what he's talking about. We miss it. We really do. We get the gospel and we get a lot of teachings and we get a lot of things, don't get me wrong. But this is a Jewish book written by Jewish people in a Jewish land in a Jewish context. And if you void the Judaism, I'm telling you, you're going to miss some rich truths that won't make you more saved, but it will penetrate that salvation deep in your heart. And I know this to be true. I have a good friend. I love this guy. He's very well loved. He's loved, and he's very well thought of. He's a Southern Baptist minister, and he's a wonderful man of God. I believe he's 46 years in ministry, 47 years. Wonderful guy. Stellar record. And when he stumbled upon this, we met 9 years ago. He showed up at a rally we were having for Israel. And he came to the house, and we had no office, we had no building, we had a little nothing congregation. He's talking to me like he wants to learn something. I said, look, you got it all. You don't want me. So we ended up having some friendship and some fellowship, and now we're very good friends. But when he stumbled upon these truths, he called me up so excited. And I said to him, let me ask you something. How do you feel? He goes, I don't know how to describe it, but I go, born again? Again? He goes, that's it. He said, I feel born again. Can anybody relate? And that's cool. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. It doesn't make you more saved. You are saved. Saved by the blood of the Lamb. I'm just saying it's beautiful when it opens up and God becomes bigger and your worship becomes deeper and you get crazed. It's just beautiful. That's all. Not the Son, only the Father knows. For the Son of Man's coming will be just like it was in the days of Noah. There it is. Back then, before the flood, people went on eating and drinking. There's nothing wrong with eating and drinking. There's nothing wrong with getting married. He's just saying that something is wrong with the attitude. Taking wise and becoming wise right up till the day Noah entered the ark. And then they didn't know what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. It'll be just like that. I mean, this is Yeshua talking. It'll be just like that. Those are some heavy words. Now, let's break it down a little bit, okay? Matthew 24, 32, 33. Now let the fig tree teach you its lesson. All right? Israel, when its branches begin to sprout. So what happened? The nation of Israel for almost 2 millennia, almost 2,000 years, guys, laid in ruins. They had no government, no land, no priesthood, no language, no sign of national life. Dead as a doornail. Every Jew was like, then 1948, what happened? Isaiah said, can a nation be born in a day? It was born in a day. Her war of independence it's mystifying. It's bigger than against all odds. None of the academies, none of the military academies in the United States will study that war because they say it defies any natural logic. We cannot glean anything from it from a warfare standpoint because it's totally supernatural. It's totally miraculous. There's no way to, people said they saw tanks. They didn't have tanks. There was 74 warplanes. They had no warplanes. You understand what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. If you study the war, they were living on 1/4 pound a week of dried meat and a stick of margarine. They were starving, and they were post-Holocaust. They already came out of the Holocaust starving. They had nothing. Study the war of 1948. You'll be blown away. And study how many nations came after them. And study their military. Well-oiled. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Now, they're back. I know according to a lot of people it took a long time, but 1,000 years is like a day, and I'm not on God's timing, you know? I mean, he's not, hey, are you impatient, Rabbi Greg? I mean, we all are impatient to an extent, but now we see that these things are coming to pass very quickly. Now it's happening. Okay, 48, they're back, they have their own land, they have their own government, they have their own language, they have their own currency, they have their own stamps. So, 'tis the season. It says when you see these things, he's right at the door. Okay? And I taught you about a month ago about the restoration of Israel and the return of the Jews. I taught that. So not only is it just a 1948 thing or a 1967 thing where Jerusalem is back in the hands of the Jewish people, but we're far past that. He's right at the door. So this isn't just wishful thinking. This isn't just somebody going, I'm depressed, I want Yeshua to come. Yes, I'm a little depressed, and I do want Yeshua to come. But nevertheless, I'm using Scripture and current events to show you that he's right at the door. Don't lose heart. Not now. That would be a horrific mistake. You've come way too far to lose this sight of what's going on. Why do I talk about it every week? Because I'm trying to get you not to lose sight of what's most important. And I've just got to tell you on a regular basis, right? Matthew 24, 34 to 35, it says, this people, now people have struggled with this. I don't know, forgive me for seeming so almost arrogant about it, but it wasn't the people that were standing there. They're long dead. People go, well, maybe, what are you spiritualizing? Who is this people? It's the Jewish people. How do I know that? Because when you look the word up, that's what it means, men of the same stock, breed, or family. He's saying that although the Jewish nation, according to the enemy, was going to be annihilated and obliterated, they're still here. That's a miracle of history. It is the greatest miracle of history. They should have been wiped out over and over and over again. Obviously, they weren't wiped out because they were completely righteous. They weren't a bunch of Noahs. They weren't wiped out because God is righteous and God is good. And if you don't understand these truths, then you don't have a leg to stand on. And if you do understand these truths, it will give you such security like you've never had in your faith. God said in Jeremiah 31, there'll always be an identifiable remnant of Jewish people. He said, heaven and earth may pass away. He said, the sun, moon, and the stars. He says, if you get up in the morning and you don't see the sun or the moon and the stars go, then maybe. But if you keep seeing them, they'll be around. What's he saying? He's being a hyperbole. He's being ridiculous. He's saying they're going to be around, knucklehead. They're bringing back the Messiah. Plus they're my wife. And the last time I checked, I'm not big on divorce. So they're here, and it's historical. Look, Benjamin Netanyahu. Do we have that? Can we just put that up for a minute and listen to that for a minute? Listen to what he says. This guy is a non-believing, non-messianic Jewish person, but I think he believes more than we know. That's what I think.
Israel will have no choice but to defend itself. I want there to be no confusion on this point. Israel will not allow Iran to get nuclear weapons. If Israel is forced to stand alone, Israel will stand alone. Yet in standing alone, Israel will know that we will be defending many, many others. The dangers of a nuclear-armed Iran and the emergence of other threats in our region have led many of our Arab neighbors to finally recognize, that Israel is not their enemy. And this affords us the opportunity to overcome historic animosities and build new relationships, new friendships. Together we've transformed a bludgeoned Jewish people, left for dead, into a vibrant, thriving nation, defending itself with the courage of modern Maccabees, developing limitless possibilities for the future. In our time, the biblical prophecies are being realized. As the prophet Amos said, they shall rebuild ruined cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink their wine. They shall till gardens and eat their fruit. And I will plant them upon their soil, never to be uprooted again. ושבתי את שבות עמי ישראל, ובנו ערים נשמות וישבו, ונטו כרמים ושתו את יינם, ועשו גינות ואכלו את פריים, ונטטים על אדמתם, ולא ינטשו עוד. Ladies and gentlemen, the people of Israel have come home never to be uprooted again. Ladies and gentlemen, Israel will never acquiesce to nuclear arms in the hands of a rogue regime that repeatedly promises to wipe us off the map.
You get the picture? Do you think people aren't talking to him? You think he's being the prime minister of a nation like Israel, which is so spiritually focused on the Messiah coming back? You think the Lord doesn't speak to him? If you think King Saul, who was so evil, can prophesy with the prophets, you don't think he could hear from God? You sell your God so short. He gets it better than most Christians. He knows the time in which he lives. We need to know the time in which we live. Because if we did, we'd be living differently. That's what this message is going to be about over the next couple weeks. It's going to be something practical, not just information. I don't like to just give information. Something we can do or should do with all this. Now, just moving on and finishing with these verses. Matthew 24:36. It says, "But when the day and the hour will come, no one knows, not the angels in heaven, not the Son, only the Father." Is it not amazing to you that devout believers will come up with an exact date, knowing that this verse says Yeshua doesn't know? It's almost like, well, you didn't know, but I know. And if you come up, I'll tell you. Now, let me give you a hint. Let me give you a word of advice. This is from your rabbi. If you set dates, make sure you're dead before the date. Most recently, there's a guy, this guy has a huge radio ministry, Harold Camping, huge. People listen to him, millions of people. He said May 21st, 2011. He needed to say like 2037 because he's like 95. Then he would have been dead and nobody would have been able to go, you're wrong. He's dead. You follow? So if you're like 50 years old, you know you can't live past 120. Okay, it's 2013 now? So make sure it's like 2085 when you project it. You follow? How are you going to go against, and you read these guys, and you study them, and you look at all their detailed information because they've worked on it very hard for years, some of them 40, 50 years. Sad, huh? Crazy. Crazy. Now, isn't it interesting, at least I think it's interesting, it says the day and the hour no one knows. Now, what else do we have? We also have, now we know the season. We know we're in the season. Based on, how do we know that? I taught that, I'm not going to belabor the point, because we have prophecy in the Bible. We have prophets who prophesied. And it says in Acts 3:21, Yeshua has to be kept in heaven until all that the prophets prophesied come to pass. So all you have to do, some of you have a lot of time on your hands, just look at all the prophecies and then see what has already come to pass, fulfilled, and see what has yet to come to pass. And then you'll see how close we are. But it says the day and the hour we don't know. Now, the season we know, but I'm here to tell you we know the year. Don't you look at me like that. Well, don't we know that it has to be 3.5 years after the idol image is set up in the new temple? So once we see that, we know we're 3.5 years out, right? We know there's going to be a peace treaty, a covenant made, okay? And then 7 years of tribulation. We know that there's going to be an idol set up in the temple that they'll worship, right? I mean, we know this, right? How do we? Let me just give you a few scriptures. I don't want to belabor the point, although I'm good at belaboring. But look at Daniel. He will make a strong covenant with leaders for 1 week. If you look up that word in the Hebrew, it's weeks of years, meaning 7 years. Okay? Just what I told you. Make a covenant. It's going to be a false peace treaty. You can't have a peace treaty unless you have wars. So when I see wars, I get excited. Okay, because I know there's a peace treaty coming. It's going to be false, but I know there's only 7 years left till I see my Lord. For half of the week, he will put a stop to the sacrifice and the grain offering. So obviously, the temple's going to have the offerings again. On the wing, and by the way, Ezekiel tells us those offerings will be there during the millennium. Ain't that going to be a pip? Remembrance, same reason why we do the feast, remembrance. On the wing of detestable things, the desolator, you know who that is, will come and continue until the already decreed destruction is poured out. It's already decreed. He will speak words against the Most High. This is crucial. You should know this verse. 7:25. Look. He will speak words against the Most High. He's always trying to get us to believe in divine betrayal. When we feel like we have nowhere to go and God has forgotten about us, it's Satan that's going to go. Yeah. Yes, he has. Anybody with me? Oh, yeah. It's one of his greatest tools. It's called divine betrayal. Okay? Because if you think God has betrayed you, you can't love him. Not God. I mean, we've all been betrayed, and we've all betrayed. Isn't it funny how people tell you about how they've been betrayed, but they never tell you how they've betrayed? Like, not me. I've been perfect. It's everybody else. Anyway, I don't want to go on to that. But look at this. He will try to exhaust the holy ones. Who are the holy ones? You. And you feel exhausted because that's what he's doing. It's not like you're not going to be a little exhausted. You're going to be a little exhausted. That's what he's doing. I don't care how much fun you have and how much partying you do. If you're pressing into the Lord, you're going to be a little tired. But you got eternity to rest. Don't worry about it. It's going to be a wonderful sleep. He will attempt to alter the seasons and the law. Isn't that interesting? We just went over God's appointed times. We just celebrated them. Those are the seasons in the law. And it says that the adversary, Satan himself, will change those things and we'll have new holidays. This is right there in the Bible. I mean, this is the prophetic book to understand timing. Matthew 24:25 is the overall picture. Revelation gives us details. And then Daniel gives us timing. It's a very important prophetic book. It gives incredible illustration of what's going to happen. And it says it right there. And I don't know why people don't see that. And it says they'll be handed over for a time, times, and a half a time. That's Hebrew for time is 1 year, times is 2 years, and half a time is half a year, 3.5 years. The man dressed in linen who was above the water, an angel, of the river raised his right and left hands towards heaven and swore by him who lives forever that it would be a time, times, and a half. And that it will be when the power of the holy people is no longer being shattered, that all these things will end. Okay? So about the end of the tribulation. It's going to start mid-tribulation and then 3.5 years. So when you see that, 3.5 years, Yeshua shows. Hey, I'm not willing to sell my soul for a bowl of lentils. Are you? I've come too far, man. I've been through too much. I'm just telling you, I've been through too much crap from people, from the enemy, and the world to throw in the towel now. I mean, I get slammed, and people say to me, don't you hear it's the enemy? If I knew it was the enemy, then I wouldn't be getting slammed. He's a deceiver. He gets me at the perfect time. He gets me post-Shabbat when I'm exhausted, I have nothing left, and he comes. He comes. Remember Amalek? They attacked in the back. Why? It was women and children. He's a bully. And bullies are very good at it. They get you when you're weak. All right, let's just go on to 3 more verses so you can see that we know the year. I'm not going to go deep into it. In Revelation, it says, but the court outside the temple, leave that out. Don't measure it because it has been given to the Goyim, and they will trample over the holy city for 42 months, 3.5 years. Also, I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for that time in the second half, 1,260 days. Again, you see it again in 12:14, 2 seasons, a season, 2 seasons, and a half a season. And it was given a mouth speaking arrogant blasphemies, and it was given authority to act for 42 months. So we know the year. Isn't it interesting, though, that Scripture says the hour and the day? It doesn't say the hour, day, and the year. Isn't it perfect? Isn't it perfect if you really want to get into detail? Now, you might not get the same revelation I get. You might get different revelation. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, when you hear me speak about these things, you can walk away and go, I don't fully get the whole revelation, but wow, God's word is really God's word. That's what I want you to at least say. You follow? So that what it says, you'll go for it. That's all. That you'll go, hey, I don't get it all, and I don't have the time to study it all, but wow, God's word is really God's word. It's really God's word. That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay, finishing up, Matthew 24:37-39. For the Son of Man's coming will be just like it was in the days of Noah. Back then, before the flood, people went on eating and drinking, taking wives, becoming wives, getting married, right up until the day that Noah entered the ark, and they didn't know what was happening. Don't you see that today? There are a lot of people, I'm telling you, very hardened to the gospel. And it doesn't stop us from sharing it, but some of us are like, they're just not listening, so I'm not going to share it. Don't make that mistake. Don't make that mistake. Some of the folks that you think will not come are already there. And some of the folks that you think are sold out are going to fall apart in the last days. You don't know who, so just put it out there. You know what I'm saying? As far as election, I don't get into it. I'm willing to nominate everybody. How about you? I don't know who's elected. I could care less about that doctrine. Okay? The Bible says go into the whole world and preach the gospel. It doesn't say go find who's elected. That's a stupid doctrine. You don't know. You don't know. Listen, a lot of these doctrines from the 1700s, do you really think we didn't have anything figured out till the 1700s? How about going back to like 100? What did Yeshua say? Now, what am I saying here? The people in the last days will be indifferent. Guys, we have major believers that are indifferent. They're indifferent. They say they love the Lord, but it does not show. They say they love the lost, but it does not show. They're indifferent. In other words, you'll hear things like, whatever. Now, I'm not saying, hey, Ev Peterson, what? Ev. I'm saying, whatever. And you'll note that today, how many people have heard this term being used? Whatever. 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 I mean, isn't it something to you that it showed up in these last days? Check the Urban Dictionary. Check the colloquialisms. It's like people are using it. They're using whatever, and they're using awesome. A word that's used only to describe God, they're using it to describe even pizza. And they're saying constantly, whatever, whatever. You know what a lousy attitude that is? Whatever, whatever. You know, really? What do you mean, whatever? What do you mean, whatever? What does that mean? What are you saying? Well, I don't understand what you're saying. Whatever. What does that mean? Nothing matters? I'm just going to live my life. I just got to take care of me. If I'm not right for me, who can I be right for? I've got to be. I mean, come on. Look, everybody has an agenda. Everybody has a life. Everybody has a family. And you have to put a certain focus on that. And you have to set boundaries up. Otherwise, that will suffer. But by the same time, if you're putting all boundaries up and you say, I'm only going to take care of them, and you want God's anointing, sure. It sounds mean. I'm being honest. I love you, and some of you do, the ones, you're out there. You're doing it. But I'm just saying, stop the focus on yourself, man. This isn't the gospel according to Dr. Phil. I'm so tired of all the psychology. It's just like all this psychology and all this philosophy, it just stymies you. I have to figure this out in my inner child. Stop it. I've got friends over there, they're winning thousands of souls in India. Who knows about the inner? You know what Samuel was? He was a Dalit. He carried the dung out. They raped his whole family. Do you know what his life was like? Do you know how many beatings he got? He worked 14 hours a day in the rice fields. They beat him. Do you see him on a couch? He's delivered because he's saved, and because he's saved, he's going out there and telling everybody about it. He's not sitting there crying about it. This guy's happy all the time. He's got a miserable life. You know what's going on in their state right now? Everything's closed. They can't get food. It's awful. It's awful when it's operating. It's awful when it's operating. Do you know what that poor boy's going through? And you'll see him smile. Help me, Oprah Winfrey. They were going through the routines of life as if they would live forever. And this is what we're being pummeled with. Get rid of the wrinkles. You're going to die. I don't care how much cream you use, you're going to have wrinkles. I mean, you're spending like thousands of dollars on night cream. You're getting old, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. The older I get, the closer I get to Yeshua. I'm like, good. They're doing genomes and DNA where they're trying to develop a chip that will help you live forever. They're in the process of that. How about if that's the mark? People are going to jump on that. You got to grow up, Peter Pan. You got to grow up. It's okay. Didn't you have your time in the sun? Weren't you once young? Well, I didn't get, well, that's not my fault. Grow up. It's okay. A few wrinkles, a little loss of hair, big deal. You don't see Ronnie Bird crying over it. He's happy. You know what you do when you're 15 pounds overweight? You find somebody 25 pounds overweight. So. Love you. Isn't it amazing how we're being pummeled with this exterior? look at me. I'm a firm believer in taking care of the temple God gave you. I think it's ludicrous that there's adult onset diabetes from just nutritional intake or the lack thereof. That's a crime. That's shooting yourself in the foot. But by the same token, I mean, come on. How much could they stretch you? I mean, we're going to find navels on the back of people's heads. Hey, you want to see my belly button? You know what I'm saying? Here was a man, I mean, he built this thing for over 100 years. Obviously, people had to wonder, why are you building this ginormous 450 feet? Don't you think they asked him? Don't you think he told them? What do you think, he was just building this in the wilderness and nobody knew? Everybody knew. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in Macon, if you sneeze, everybody knows. Clearly, they knew when he was building a huge, ginormous ark. They asked him and he told them. But you know what they acted like? Flood-proof, just like people act today. I'm all right. I got this thing. Now, you don't wish it on them. You're not like, wow, you'll see. You'll see when judgment comes. You'll see. You don't, that's mean. If you feel that way, get out of the game. But isn't it sad that they think they're flood-proof? I mean, how many planes have I been on? At least a couple hundred. At least. And I'm being conservative. Every time I'm on a plane, what do? First, they tell you to shut down your devices. Do you know why? Because if you don't listen to the plane emergency procedures and something happens, they're liable. It's not interfering with nothing. What do you think? The guy's sitting there, the pilot, and he's like, all right, who's got Bob Marley on? It's not interfering. If that could happen, the planes would go down left and right. They have to get you to listen. Even when the seatbelt sign's on, if you get up to go to the bathroom, you're allowed. They will say, sir, the seatbelt sign's. I'm like, look, my eyeballs are turning yellow. I got to go to the bathroom. They'll say go. Listen, they'll say go, but they have to tell you that because if something happens, if there's a turbulence, you fall and you sue, and you know people are sue crazy today. They say, no, we warned you. You follow? But they can't keep you in your seat. You have to. I've got to go. Get out of my way. Anyway, every time the plane emergency procedure's on, most people don't pay attention. Now, why don't they pay attention? In fact, it's an inconvenience. I'm trying to read. I'm trying to prepare for a meeting. Why? Because they're flood-proof. The plane's never going to go down. Planes crash. Yes. And your plane is going to crash. You better believe it. It's going to crash. They don't pay attention. I watch it all the time. All the time, right? On doing their thing, right? Reading, it's like, especially in first class, which it's not first class anymore, right? You're not allowed to say that. It's politically incorrect because then you're second class. But if you watch those flight attendants, and I've been on a couple of times, when they close that curtain, they look back at you and be like, if you just would have worked a little harder. They're snide. Are there any flight attendants here? You know. They're very snide. They're not nice anymore. They used to be. They used to attend the flight. Now they just attend to themselves. Like, you ring the bell. What do you want? What do you mean, what do I want? You're attending the flight. My flight is paying your salary. We just got back from a flight, and the bag of nuts are getting, I've been flying since the 70s. They're getting smaller and smaller. Now they're this big. I call the flight attendant over. I go, in a couple of years, am I going to have to bring you nuts? Like, is that what it's coming to? And I said, listen, I don't mean to be an inconvenience, and I don't mean to, but I have a dilemma. For some reason, if I can't eat all 6 peanuts, do you have some kind of to-go receptacle? Because I don't want to waste. Some of them will laugh at you because they go, it's a shame, right? I go, yeah, it's a shame. Just charge me $20 more and give me something to eat. Now they're selling food on the flight. Crazy. So the people on the flight, they pay attention. up to the point where they go over the emergency procedures. They want to make sure they got their seat. They want to make sure their luggage is right up there. They want to make sure they're nice and comfortable. Then they go over these emergency procedures, and it's like, we're not gonna crash. The other day in the UK, they found the pilot and the co-pilot fast asleep. Okay? Why do you think they shut those doors now? It's not security. They don't want you to see them in their pajamas. If you see a pilot wearing his PJs, you get off the plane. If I was a flight attendant, I'd love to be one for just a day. I would slam down the computers. I would pull the magazines out of their hand and throw them. And then I'd take a doll, and I'd throw some kerosene on her, and I'd light her a fire, and I'd go, ah! Because that's what it's going to look like, okay? When they say, in the unlikely event, just slide down the tube. No, you're going to be on fire, and you're going to die. Well, they can't say that, right? Well, that's what's going to happen to people. It's going to happen. We didn't make it up. And some of us have been walking in the faith so long, we forgot. We forgot what it was to share the gospel. We have stopped. All we do is get together with other believers and convince them that their doctrine's wrong and ours is right. And that is a waste of your time. We have very little time. Not just on this earth, but in the course of a day. Between what I have to do here and what I have to do at home, I don't have a lot of time. I have very little time, and I have to use that time wisely, and so do you. It's not just because I'm a rabbi. You're busy. You have a life, and you're very busy. All of you are very busy. You know it. Some of you are too busy, and some of you are busy doing a lot of nothing. Okay? Searching for things on the internet for 3 hours is a waste, okay, to save $1. Spend the extra buck and have 3 hours of time. But I'm saying you have very little time. How are you going to use it? What would Yeshua do? It's crucial. And I want to get into something with you next week that I think is one of the most important things I could ever share with you about the Jewish people. It is the set time for Jerusalem and the Jewish people. And I want you to be very proactive and very aggressive with your Jewish friends, your Jewish doctors, your Jewish neighbors, and your Jewish relatives. And I want to tell you some things not to say and some things you absolutely need to say, okay? We are a messianic congregation, and as far as I know, it's to the Jew first. Now, let me just end this week with this, and we'll continue next week, and it will blossom, trust me. Genesis 6:17, 18, and 7:1-16, it says, "Then I myself," this is the Lord, "will bring the flood of water over the earth to destroy from under heaven every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will be destroyed. But," and I love that, "I will establish my covenant with you, Noah." Isn't that beautiful? See, it don't matter what anybody does, okay? God has established his covenant with you. You establish your covenant with him. Don't worry about what anybody else does. I mean, yes, of course, you got to worry about friends and family, and you can, oh, look what's going on, Rabbi. Just focus on your covenant with God and focus on telling people about that covenant with God. You will come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Acts says you and your family. Adonai said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you alone," can you imagine? You alone. You alone. I don't think the numbers are as accurate as they say. I just don't think they're that accurate, because the way they determine the body of believers numerically is church attendance. That's the only way. They can't go into a person's heart. So if a church has 800 members, those are 800 born-again people. That'd be the day. Sounds mean. I'm just saying. Billy Graham said it a lot before I did. He said the biggest mission field in America is the American church. And come on, you can't diss Brother Billy. You could diss me, but you can't diss him, can you? Those that entered went in, male and female, from every kind of living being as God had ordered him, and God shut him inside. I just want you to see that there's divine responsibility and there's human responsibility. Okay? You have responsibility. God helps those who help themselves. This is not just, well, God did it all and I don't have to do anything. Oh, you do. There's God's grace, but you trust and you repent through that trust, right? And life changes, no? It's supposed to be. You can't just say, well, I believe Yeshua died for my sins. Satan believes Yeshua died for the sins of the world. Divine sovereignty and human responsibility are not mutually exclusive. That means they're not contradictory, but complementary. Noah built the ark. He trusted, but God shut the door. He redeemed. You got to go into them, and not just with lip service. You got to go into them. I want to show you one last revelation that I'm sure you know. If you don't, it could be kind of cool. If not, well, we're almost done. Genesis 5, it's the revelation of the genealogy. That's what I call it. Look at the 10 generations from Adam. Okay? These are the 10 generations from Adam. 10 is a number in biblical numerology. I say not numerology, biblical numerology, something called gematria. Every number has meaning, and every word has a numerical equivalent. That's how intense the Bible can be. And I just want you to see 10 is the number for completion. Completion, not perfection, that's 7, completion. So in these 10 men, and a name is better chosen, right? Proverbs 22. We tried very hard to hear from God on what we should name our children. We tried very hard to hear a verse that we would speak over them. We tried, did we? I don't know. I'd like to think so. We prayed and, tried very hard. Name is better chosen. A name is what the person's going to walk out, their character, their renown, their fame, whatever. Look at what this translates to from the Hebrew. Look at what this translates to from the Hebrew. Look at what no, I'm kidding. These are the 10 names. You see the dashes? This is the actual Hebrew interpretation. Man appointed mortal sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching. His death shall bring the despairing rest and comfort. There's the gospel. We're going to shy away from being a cruise ship, and we're going to be more of a fishing boat. It's time. And when you get out of yourself and start doing that, you're going to really, your faith is really going to, and I know why it happens. Not just because we get tired. We lose compassion. That's it. Good people. You get burnt, you get betrayed, and you lose compassion. And you think you got to go to, Africa to find compassionate people. Let me tell you something. The African congregations, I'm there all the time, they have just as many problems we have here. It's not all glory because they're in Africa or in India or anywhere else. You know why? Because people are people. Last but not least, can I ask the praise and worship team to come? I'm sorry. I should focus on that better. And I don't, and I'm sorry. If you don't forgive me, then no. And I just want to reiterate to you, I love when you come up and talk to me afterwards. I love when you give me a hug and you tell me you love me, because I don't look to be pedestalized. I look to be loved and cared for. And I think that's what you're looking for. So if you want to come up and give me a hug and say I love you, I'm all for it. You're going to have to face it. I'm addicted to love. I really like it. Okay? But just let you know, I'm on a 3-day fast right now. I would keep your hands and fingers away from my mouth because it's been about 72 hours and I'm a little hungry. Just look at these 2 verses and we're going to build on this. John 3. I know that you've heard this and it's become happenstance. My condolences. This will never be happenstance to me. Never, ever, never, ever, never, ever. Just remember that God gave. The gift came out of the fruit of love. He loved the world. He doesn't love the world system, but he loves the people. That's what he's referring to. He gave his only and unique Son so that everyone who trusts in him may have eternal life instead of being utterly destroyed. That's what's coming. When he comes the second time, he comes as the destroyer. Okay? And just always tack on verse 17. God did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, not the first time. So you're not here to judge the world. Okay? If the Son didn't come to judge the world, then you got no business judging it. And be careful about how judgmental you are, because with what you sow, you shall reap. I'm not saying not to discern. I'm not saying that when we have people that want to teach, we don't discern and do background checks. I'm not saying, don't take it to the nth degree. I'm just saying, don't be a weed whacker, be a seed sower. Okay, and I didn't make that up. It's in Matthew 13. He said, don't whack the weeds, sow the seeds. Let the weeds grow, and then when it's time, I'll take care of those things, not you. Okay, and I have proof for that, because if you come to my house and you come in my backyard, you will see I don't whack the weeds. For God did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, but rather, okay, not only did he do that, but to the contrary, so that through him, the world might be saved. I know that many will not find it, but we're still called to do it, and we're going to get into it more and more in the next week, at least week, maybe 2 weeks. Shabbat Shalom. It's going to change you if you apply it. I know what God told me. I know what he told me. This is where it's at. This is what it's all about. It really is. And we've gotten knowledge crazy. And some of our identity has become our idolatry. And I love you. I love you. And I think you're aces. And I say it all the time. In my house, my kids, you ask them. It's not like I say it here and I don't say it there. I love you. You're like my kids. It's crazy because some of you are a little older than me, but this is how I feel. And I'm very protective. But I want to see a little shift. If not, oh, well, then not. But, you know, I want to go with God's lead because he's never been wrong here before. He's never been wrong here before, you know. And I don't want to be Greg, and I don't want to be Messianic, and I don't want to be Pentecostal. I want to be Godish. If you'll give me the opportunity to bless you, if you'll come close to one another and grab a hand of somebody that's close to you. We have a lot of visitors. We get visitors all the time, and that's wonderful. You know, most places they have the standard few, and on holidays, mom or somebody comes. And we get a ton of visitors. And, you know, this might seem like I'm blessing you. I'm not blessing you. These are the very words of God. It's the only time in the whole Bible that God the Father is issuing a blessing. It's crazy. And if you ever want to bless your kids, you want to bless your family, you want to bless your relatives, you want to bless anything, this is what you say. And in these 3 sentences, if you will go home and break it down in the Hebrew, you'll be blown away by what God was saying over you. You will just go back. It will be awesome. You will find yourself in some awe of what God was speaking over you. He told Moses, his boy. That was his boy. Okay? Moses was the servant of the Lord, not a servant, the servant. And he said, tell your brother Aaron. You tell him, Moses. He didn't even tell Aaron. He says, he's the high priest. You're the prophet. He's the high priest. You prophesy to him and tell him that if I was standing on this mountain myself, this is what I would say. And I'm telling you, if Yeshua was here right now, this is what he'd say. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his very countenance upon you and give you his peace. In the name of the Prince of all peace, Yeshua. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yo'eh Adonai pono v'elecha v'hunecha. Yisa Adonai pono v'elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. I love you. Shabbat shalom.